Jupiter Lend is finally here, and Jupiter is offering some crazy incentives for you to lend and earn a yield on your tokens, including the Syrup USDC and USDC stablecoin with up to 55% APY, or JLP deposits at 90% APY, or even Solana deposits at over 40% APY. And there are many more lucrative incentives currently on the Jupiter Lend platform. So I wanted to dive deeper into some of the best vaults available to you. Let's take a look. So Jupiter Lend is finally here with 40 different vaults and over 2 million in incentives to new users. So to access this, you would go over to the lend section, and they have 3 different areas you can deposit into: the earn section, borrow section, and even multiply. So from left to right along the way, the incentives and APYs do get higher as you deposit into these different vaults. So under earn, you do have straightforward lending with no leverage. So here's where you'll find your stable coins and Solana tokens. So for USDC, we're getting close to 12% APY, USDT over 13% APY, or even USDS, which is the formerly DAI stablecoin, with over 15% APY. So if you want to deposit into any of these vaults, you click inside and enter the amount you would want to deposit and hit deposit. Under borrow, things start to get more interesting. You can also borrow against your assets. So for example, if you deposit Solana, you're able to borrow USDC against that position. The loan to value ratio here is 75%. So for depositing Sol here, that would net you 10% APY in rewards. Pretty cool. Let's say you wanted to deposit some Solana and borrow USDC. So for depositing Solana, you would earn 10% APY, but the borrow rate is 1.9%. So you subtract 10 from 1.9, and you'd be essentially netting 8% APY for this vault. Now, anytime you deposit Solana here, you are obligated to borrow the USDC. You don't have to spend the USDC, but the USDC that's borrowed will live in your wallet. You're always free to repay the amount up here. Now, this is where things get interesting. We do have a Syrup USDC and USDC vault. So for depositing Syrup USDC, you will earn 7% APY, but yet the borrow rate is a negative 0.1. What does that mean? You're actually paid to borrow this amount, which is a crazy concept to think of. So for utilizing this vault for making a deposit here, you're being paid to borrow USDC. So this is a highly lucrative pool. This is a stable coin pool too. So there is virtually zero risk here. As you know, stable coins are pegged to $1. So for depositing Syrup USDC, you will be paid to utilize this vault. And finally, let's take a look at the multiply section where things get really exciting. So multiply, you're creating a leverage or looped position. What does that mean? When you open a position, assets are borrowed against your collateral and converted back into the collateral asset until your desired leverage is achieved. Keep in mind, multiply also increases liquidation risk. So let's look at this multiply Syrup USDC pool. Click in here. So all you need to do here is supply some Syrup USDC, and the protocol on the back end will then borrow USDC. It will then take that USDC and convert it back into Syrup USDC and redeposit that into here automatically on the back end. You don't have to do it. This is where the looping part comes in. So how do you achieve this high 55% APY? You increase your leverage as you're depositing the Syrup USDC. So this number here is theoretically the highest amount you can gain on this specific vault. It all depends on how much leverage you use when you deposit the original Syrup USDC. And this is all explained in more detail down here at the FAQ section. So in this multiply section, the stablecoin vault here is the safest option. You're not subject to price fluctuations. Again, stablecoins are pegged to $1. Let's say you want to deposit some Syrup USDC. You do have your leverage slider here. And as your leverage increases, so does your theoretical APY return. For beginners, I recommend you stay at 2x or below. That is considered a safe bet. You start going at 2.5, close to 3x here, you start entering risky territory. We start going at 5x and above, we start entering very risky. Or when we max this out, almost 8x, enter even more very risky territory. We do have other top vaults here, and if you're looking for a straight Solana deposit where you can multiply your earnings, here, this Solana vault, you can deposit Solana and borrow USDC. This is a max APY of 34%. So again, you would choose the amount you would like to deposit, and with this leverage slider here, you can choose the amount of final APY you will earn. Again, the higher the leverage, the higher your final APY will increase. And it even shows you a status metric down here if your leverage leverage is too high and we start getting into very risky levels. So for beginners, I do recommend you maintain a leverage of 1 or up to 2x leverage, which is still under the safe threshold. You start going above 2 at say 2.5, you start entering more risk. Start going to 3x leverage, higher risk, and the max amount, almost 4x risk, you start getting into very risky levels. So there you have it, a complete guide on how to use the new lend feature on the Jupiter DEX. And you can always choose your risk tolerance from earn to borrow to multiply. Just depends how much APY you want to earn. For beginners, you can stick simply with earn. That's the safest and most straightforward bet. But if you're looking for some high APYs, you would go with the multiply feature. But personally, I'm super glad platforms like Jupiter are getting into the lending space. We finally have a real competitor versus other platforms like Camino Finance, which has dominated the Solana DeFi ecosystem for a while. Jupiter is yet again proving to be your one-stop hub for everything Solana. So what do you think about the new Jupiter lend feature? Let me know in the comment section. And don't forget to check out my YouTube channel where I have tons of free other crypto tutorials. And as always, if you have any questions, please leave a question in the comment section. I'll be happy to respond. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you on the next one.